Bismillah. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. So, last time we were discussing narrations 32 to 38. That's right. And we basically finished those narrations. I just wanted to look at some of the additional wording and some other narrations. I've highlighted it, so do you remember the hadith? Last time we discussed? Where Prophet ﷺ said that I was commanded to fight an-nas, the people, but he didn't mean everyone. He meant the people who were fighting, that he would fight them. But when does the fighting end? Fighting ends by one of three. The fighting would end by one of two choices. One of them, if they accept Islam, and this is what's mentioned in this hadith. The other one, if they accept jizya, which means to come under Muslim rule, and accept the rulings, even the taxes that are imposed on them. Just like any rule, any government in the world would impose taxes and regulations. Again, a Muslim government would also impose taxes and regulations on its residents. The Muslims would have to pay what's called zakah, the obligatory charity, and the non-Muslims would have to pay what's called jizya, which is a different kind of tax, but it's less actually than zakah. So he says, and everyone who, once they say that, once they accept Islam, then there would be no more fighting, and everyone would be held accountable based on what he does after that. If somebody commits a crime that would require a penalty, whether physical or financial, that would apply to that person. Now, in some other narrations of this same hadith, he says, وَيُؤْمِنُوا بِي وَيُؤْمِنُوا بِمَا جِئْتُ بِهِ. The meaning is that they would believe in me, meaning believe in Allah, believe in Prophet ﷺ, and believe in what he brought, the revelation. It's important, this narration, because some people, and this is a false claim, but I want to mention it to you. Some people claim that it is enough for somebody to believe in the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ as a messenger, and that's it. Just that's all they need to believe in. They don't have to believe in what he brought, which is the Quran and his teachings. Some people say that. Some people would say that it's enough for a person to become a Muslim just to believe in that he's a prophet. So prophet, what significance does this have? What teachings would you believe in? No, that's enough. They stop at this level. But here he makes it clear that believing in him includes to believe in what he brought, means the Quran and his teachings. Otherwise, if somebody claims to believe in the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and he doesn't believe in what he brought the revelation, he does not believe in the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. He has not done the full shahada, correct? Another narration by different companions who heard this saying from the Prophet, such as the narration of Jabir. The previous narration I just mentioned to you was by the companion Abu Huraira. The one prior to that was Abu Huraira as well. Two different narrations from Abu Huraira. The one prior to that, the main one that we discussed, was Umar ibn Khattab. And so the one that I am just mentioning now by Jabir, Prophet ﷺ at the end of his teaching, he recited the saying of Allah, the verse, فَذَكِّرْ إِنَّمَا أَنْتَ مُذَكِّرْ لَسْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ بِمُصَيْطِرْ. Means that your role is to remind. You are only a reminder. Remind them as you are only a reminder. You have no control over them. لَسْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ بِمُصَيْطِرْ. Actually, this verse confirms what we mentioned, that this saying of the Prophet that he was commanded to fight does not mean he fights everybody. He fights those who fight. وَقَاتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ الَّذِينَ يُقَاتِلُونَكُمْ. You fight those who fight you. وَلَا تَعْتَدُوا. You do not transgress, for Allah does not love those who transgress. It's not in the Muslim religion and teaching for us to go and transgress on people who are peaceful to us, as long as they have not created a threat to us and they have not restricted the freedom of Muslims and Islam to be taught to other people. You go to other, if there was, I mentioned before, if Muslims fought in the past at the time of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, either because they were fought or somebody was threatening to attack them, so then the Muslims, if they were under a threat, they would then exchange that same threat and mention to those people that we fear that you will attack us one day, and we also declare to you that we would treat you the same way. So since you have not given us peace, we also you should not feel in peace from our side. So this is a second class. The first people who are physically attacked, those are to be fought. The first one. The second one are those who create a threat. Then also Muslims can deal with them in the same way. And the third class of nations that were fought by the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and his companions were nations that prevented Muslims, Islam actually from being listened to, or Muslims to practice their religion. There was oppression of some kind, and that was also وَمَا لَكُمْ لَا تُقَاتِلُونَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَالْمُسْتَضْعَفِينَ, those who are oppressed, to free people from oppression. That is also one of the reasons Muslims fought. But here he says very clearly at the end of this hadith, at the end of the report, that his role is not to force anybody to embrace Islam, but to remind, and that the Quran says you have no control over the people. Okay. Another narration adds also that if they accept Islam and say La ilaha illallah wa kafara bima yu'bad min dunillah, to accept Allah as the only one worthy of worship, and to reject all other false deities. That also involves and is implied and included under the Shahada. All these hadith explain each other and add more information. And each companion, this last narration was narrated by Malik عن أبيه. مالك عن أبيه هو طارق ibn Ushaym al-Ashja'i, وابنه مالك هو سعد ibn طارق. So these are the people. His name is Tariq ibn Ushaym al-Ashja'i, a different Sahabi that was not maybe very commonly mentioned. So he is not one who narrated this additional piece of information we got through him. Also in another narration, this one is also through same man, Tariq ibn Ushaym al-Ashja'i. He says, Man wahhad Allah, that to unify Allah, to declare the unity of Allah. So this hadith is basically done. How many minutes have we gone? 7 minutes. I will just read to you the following hadith, and we will then leave the explanation till next time. The following hadith, following narration, not sure if it's in this book, but let me mention it to you here. It is narration number 39, and the variant narrations that come after it include number 40, number 41, number 42. So now we'll be discussing 39 to 42, and this narration goes as follows. It is narrated by a man called Abdullah ibn Wahb. أخبرني يونس عن ابن شهاب الزهري. He's from the second generation. قال أخبرني سعيد بن المسيب. سعيد المسيب is from the Tabi'in, also second generation. عن أبيه that on the authority of his father. Sa'id ibn Musayyib is not from the Sahaba, but his father was from the companions. So this is a continuous, it is a connected chain of narration, undisturbed, that he said, when death came upon Abu Talib is the uncle of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When death came upon Abu Talib, لما حضرت أبا طالب الوفاة جاءه رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم came to him. فوجد عنده أبا جهل وعبد الله بن أبي أمية ibn al-Mughira. When he went to visit him as he was dying, there was two men there. One of them was Abu Jahl. Abu Jahl, his real name is Amr ibn Hisham. His alias is, or the other name is Abu Jahl. His name is Amr ibn Hisham. And there was another man, Abdullah ibn Umayyah ibn al-Mughira. This is the other man. This other man is actually the brother of Salama, who later on Prophet ﷺ married. Salama, one of the wives of the Prophet. This man, Abdullah ibn Abi Umayyah ibn al-Mughira, is her brother. He himself later on embraced Islam too, but much later on in the conquest of Mecca. Because this incident of Abu Talib dying happened in the 9th year, just before, not the 9th year, probably the 12th year in Mecca, just before migration to Medina. مات أبو طالب ولرسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم 49 سنة و8 أشهر و11 يوما. The scholars know exactly. They say Abu Talib died when the Prophet Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم was 49 years, 8 months and 11 days old. Subhanallah. See how accurate they are. The amount of information we know about the life of Prophet Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم is quite amazing. Yani, even if I ask you what day is this in your life, you wouldn't know. You can tell me how old you are in years, but very difficult to tell me the number of months. Maybe the months you'll get right, but the number of days you have to get the calculator. So, and Khadija died after the death of Abu Talib by only 3 days. Okay, so he found these two men, and these two men at the time were non-Muslims, of course, and Abu Jahl died as a non-Muslim, but the other man later embraced Islam in the battle, in the conquest of Mecca. Okay, Prophet ﷺ said, Ya Am, O my uncle, قل لا إله إلا الله كلمة أشهد لك بها عند الله. Say La ilaha illallah, just a word, say this word so that I can testify on your behalf and, when we meet Allah. قال أبو جهل وعبد الله بن أبي أمية. The two men, of course, were very keen that he doesn't say that word. Abu Talib, of course, is a leader amongst Quraysh. So if he embraces Islam, it will create so much turmoil within the tribe of Quraysh. Many people might follow him just because of that. They said to him, Ya Aba Talib, أترغب عن ملة عبد المطلب? O Abu Talib, will you leave the religion of your father Abdul Muttalib? Because that's his father, the grandfather of Prophet Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم, Abdul Muttalib. So he says to him, فلم يزل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يعرضها عليه ويعيد له تلك المقالة. Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم kept on saying the same thing. Abu Talib, my uncle, please say La ilaha illallah, say the testimony of faith that none is worthy of worship except Allah, several times, but still he did not say it. حتى قال أبو طالب آخر ما كلمهم هو على ملة عبد المطلب وأبى أن يقول لا إله إلا الله. So he says, at the last word that he says, I die on the religion of Abdul Muttalib, my father. Now, وأبى, he refused to say لا إله إلا الله. فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أم والله أو أما والله. He says, indeed, by name of Allah, or by Allah, لأستغفرن لك ما لم أنه عنك. I will continue to ask for forgiveness for you as long as I'm not barred and prohibited from doing so. As if he felt that maybe the prohibition will come. And that's, of course, because of his knowledge of whatever was revealed to him from religion so far. He knows that Allah Azza wa Jal will not forgive anyone who doesn't at least acknowledge Allah as the only one. That's not just an acknowledgement. Doesn't involve any kind of sacrifice. Just acknowledge. That's all you need to do. If somebody just acknowledge, and that's actually exactly why he mentioned it here. Imam Muslim put this hadith under this title, باب الدليل على صحة إسلام من حضره الموت ما لم يشرع في النزع وهو في الغرغرة ونسخ جواز الاستغفار للمشركين والدليل على أن من مات على الشرك فهو من أصحاب الجحيم ولا ينقذه من ذلك شيء من الوسائل. All these lessons, actually he put, the title is a little bit long, I'll translate it, but it's very important. It shows you that those scholars understood exactly what the hadith implies, and they made that as the title of the chapter. He says, this chapter brings you the evidence that a person who embraces Islam as he is dying, even as he is dying, his Islam is accepted and authentic and will save him. He says, ما لم يشرع في النزع أو الغرغرة. As long as he hasn't, because death has certain signs before the soul starts leaving the body. He says, as long as the soul hasn't reached a certain level, such as, to the throat, and the person is still able to comprehend and speak, then that is accepted. He says also, this hadith shows you that the initial permissibility of making istighfar, asking forgiveness for polytheists and disbelievers, was cancelled, and this no longer is allowed. This no longer allowed for the believers, even not allowed for the Prophet ﷺ himself. And it says also, this hadith shows you the evidence that whoever dies in a state of shirk, polytheism, associating other deities with Allah, he is min ashab al-jahim. He is one of the permanent inhabitants. Ashab al-jahim means permanent inhabitants. The difference, he didn't say dakhal al-jahim or dakhal al-nar. He didn't say he will enter the fire. No, because some believers will enter the fire. We know that. But when you hear the word ashab al-jahim, means asahib means companion, somebody who never separates from the fire. He will always be in the fire. وَلَا يُنْقِذُهُ مِنْ ذَلِكَ شَيْءٌ مِنَ الْوَسَائِلِ. He says, and nothing will save him from that. Anyhow, so then when he says, I will continue to ask forgiveness for you, as long as I'm not barred from that, Allah Azza wa Jal revealed, مَا كَانَ لِلنَّبِيِّ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَن يَسْتَغْفِرُوا لِلْمُشْرِكِينَ وَلَوْ كَانُوا أُولِي قُرْبَى مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا تَبَيَّنَ لَهُمْ أَصْحَابُ الْجَحِيمِ. Which means that it is not permissible for the Prophet or the believers to make istighfar, to ask forgiveness for the polytheists, even if they are relatives of them, after it was made clear to them that they are from the permanent residents of the fire of hell, Ashab al-Jahim. وأنزل الله في أبي طالب, and Allah also revealed about Abu Talib, لرسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم, to the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, إنك لا تهدي من أحببت ولكن الله يهدي من يشاء وهو أعلم بالمهتدين. You cannot guide those whom you love, but Allah, it is He, Allah, who guides whom He wills, and He knows best who is to be guided. We'll stop here inshallah. Now.